Well, it's been 100 years since the Fresno Irrigation District was established in 1920, but it's not as well known that actually it's been 150 years since the irrigation history in the Fresno area began. That was in 1870, and right out here where the Fresno Canal headgate is now is where construction began in 1870 on the Fresno Canal, which was the first canal to bring water into the Fresno area and was responsible for so much of the development in what is now Fresno as well as Clovis.
The predecessor to the Fresno Irrigation District went down and bought a lot of land downstream on the Kings River that had historically had some riparian rights, and they transferred all those water rights up to the Fresno Canal and Irrigation Company, and they were the predecessors to FID. In 1920, the legislature in California enacted legislation that allowed for the creation of irrigation districts. We're 100 years old today because in 1920, when the irrigation district law was passed, Fresno Irrigation District was formed, and they then bought from the Fresno Canal and Irrigation Company all of the water rights that old company had acquired over time.
Those of us who are landowners in the Fresno Irrigation District are extremely fortunate in that our forebears were able to negotiate the lion's share of the Kings River to come into Fresno. And with that surface water, it makes our land so much more valuable and sustainable than any other land in the Central Valley.
The one thing I like about Fresno Irrigation District, and they're not alone in this, but it's certainly true and enjoyable, is that if there's water behind the dam, it's yours. If it doesn't rain, we've all got problems. If it rains, you're going to get some water. There's no question about that.
My grandparents started farming in Kerman over 100 years ago, so we're privileged that we've been with FID since its existence in the Kerman area and 50+ years here. You have to be somewhat strange to say that you enjoy paying taxes. But if I had one tax that I enjoy paying, it's FID. I believe the communities, I believe the farmers, everybody gets a real benefit from FID.
When I think back to the early days of the district, we really need to pay respect and think back to what they meant to this area and to this region. And I think back to just the tremendous amount of foresight, the knowledge they had, the business savvy to go after those water rights and put together a business plan to purchase the over 800 miles of canal infrastructure and the water rights that came with that.
When we made water delivery to our growers, we went from the gate and we moved backwards. And what that basically meant is we are a service provider. So the service we wanted to provide wanted to be second to none, still get the water to our growers, but we actually had another entity that kind of grew and developed, and those were the cities.
The city and FID have been working together for well over 50 years, and the city relies upon the district in terms of the conveyance of surface water from the San Joaquin River as well as the Kings River. And we've relied upon that for groundwater recharge, and then today through an expansion of infrastructure. More importantly, we are utilizing that surface water to directly treat it, deliver that to our customers, and that allows us to save our groundwater and ensure sustainable water for decades to come.
For Clovis, it certainly presents an opportunity for some great partnerships. We partner in many ways that are a bit invisible to the general public. Fresno Irrigation District provides the water to our surface water treatment plant, to our recharge basins. We partner with them in the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and in water banking facilities. Their canals and water conveyances and their cooperation and partnership with Fresno Metropolitan Flood Control District is critical to protecting our residents from flooding, but those are largely invisible.
FID's leadership has always had at their origin the protection and management of our surface water and groundwater resources. And that includes things like recharge, monitoring the water level, making sure that we have our finger on the pulse in terms of what's happening with the aquifer, and then planning projects accordingly. Cities of Fresno and Clovis are within the FID boundary, and we have a unique partnership with our city municipality agencies. So it's extremely important that that resource is reliable and that we have properly maintained infrastructure so that we can properly deliver that water without interruption to all of Fresnans and all FID customers.
FID's main canal systems are about 150 years old and were constructed primarily in the late 1800s, with newer systems after the turn of the century. We have about 310 miles of open canal and about 360 miles of pipelines. Of our pipelines, about half are cast-in-place pipeline, and a majority of our pipelines are 40 years or older.
So this is the sloping crew, and what they do is they take the silts and the dirt that's built up in the bottom of the canal over the last irrigation system. We try to get it back up on the sides of the banks. It helps the water flow better. Because there's pipelines at the end of our open canals, and it helps keep the debris out of the pipelines also.
So this valley's agriculture industry started with wheat here locally, and the wheat industry was, strong from the mid 1800s all the way through the early 1900s, and then, about the 19-teens sometime is when we started to see that transition to permanent crops. So the system that we have here is we have these micro misters that literally just fan the water out and cover the whole root zone of these almond trees here. It's a very efficient use of water. We're able to take this water and we keep it within the root zone, and it really has increased our crop per drop for these trees here. But over here we have obviously the open row, and this open row is what we're able to utilize during flood years. We're able to take excess flows, we're able to turn on the valves and run water down these rows and literally just let it sink down. This, as you can see, this soil is extraordinarily sandy, and it's incredible for agriculturally speaking. It does some wonders when it comes to these trees and vines. But when it comes to being able to recharge the groundwater aquifer, this soil does amazing things.
Anytime you want to sell this land, it's sold at a premium, and there's no negotiation necessary, there's no brokers necessary. You can sell it on your own if you're savvy about land sales, and quite frankly, you're always going to get above and beyond market price. If nothing else, they realize the value of FID.
We've had employees here, some that have been here 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. They know the district like the back of their hand. And we're losing them because they're retiring out. So our job now is to train the next generation of employees, and we're investing in that. The responsibility is making sure that we're continuing to provide, to protect the water, to convey the water, to maintain the systems that send the water out to the community.
For 100 years, FID has been fulfilling its mission, which is essentially to protect and manage the surface and groundwater supplies for the present and future needs within the district. There's a reason why our groundwater supply and the aquifer is so plentiful below us. We divert over 500,000 acre feet on average, so that's roughly the size of Millerton Lake, into the Fresno Irrigation District every year. And if not for our forefathers, what they put together over 100 years ago, this area wouldn't be what it is today.